you're alone, it's late. And what you're about to hear isn't just a story. Some things are better left unknown. But since you're here, let's begin. My name is Mike Galla, and I'm a private detective. When you hear about my profession, you probably imagine one of two images. Some picture a charming but cynical sleuth obsessed with finding the truth, like J. Gitz from Chinatown. Others imagine a dirty drunk who profits from the victims of tragedy. They see a man promising peace of mind that may not even exist just to fund his endless bender. The truth is far less glamorous. I'm a failed police detective. After making too many mistakes, I chose to resign before my superiors could fire, transfer, or demote me. The skills I learned in the police force were perfectly suited for private investigation, so I joined a local firm in my hometown. Honestly, the work is much more boring than people think. I often worked with the district attorney's office on their minor cases, gathering information on petty criminals. Other times, I was essentially a highly paid background check specialist for local businessmen. Deadly boring, honestly, but it paid enough for a decent apartment, so I never felt the urge to quit, at least until recently. 2 weeks ago, I decided to retire far earlier than planned. It's hard to find the words to explain my departure. I've begun to doubt my own sanity because of what my last case uncovered. I thought writing this story down from memory might have some therapeutic effect. So here I am. A month ago, a woman named Marjorie Holden came to my office. She was in her 40s and asked me to investigate a possible disappearance. Mrs. Holden told me her nephew, Aaron, hadn't been in contact for over 5 years, and she was worried he was in trouble. I advised her to go to the police, but she felt they wouldn't take her seriously. She believed the police wouldn't care since she was only reporting his possible disappearance now. It turned out Mrs. Holden was a member of a fairly well-known family in our area. The Snells were famous in northeastern Pennsylvania for both their wealth and their family problems. They owned one of the most profitable local businesses, the Snell Foundry, which manufactured aircraft parts. The factory had become an industrial giant during World War II. Jackson Snell, Marjorie's grandfather, was the man who secured the contract with the U.S. government. He died under mysterious circumstances just after the war ended. Jackson's death seemed to cast a heavy shadow over the family, and that discord has lasted to this day. Back to the case. Marjorie told me Aaron had left for college in Maryland over 10 years ago. He simply never returned. She believed Aaron might have used his father's willingness to pay for tuition as a pretext to escape the family for good. And Aaron's now deceased father simply didn't care what his son was doing until he died unexpectedly. Marjorie stated she had been in contact with Aaron after his father's death, but for the last 5 years there had been no word from him. She noticed I wasn't exactly eager to take the case, so she offered to pay double my usual rate if I made it a priority. I reluctantly agreed. I quickly discovered that a surface-level search for Aaron yielded almost nothing. 3 high school friends of Aaron's that Marjorie could name told me he had fallen off the radar as soon as he left town. Marjorie gave me a link to his Facebook page, but it hadn't been used in about 8 years. I called the university where he studied only to learn he was expelled for academic failure and behavioral problems 3 months into his second semester. To the untrained eye, the search for Aaron looked like a dead end. However, I managed to discover something important. The email he used to register Facebook was also linked to a YouTube account. It seemed Aaron had gotten into urban exploration. He made it his hobby to investigate abandoned buildings, filming it and uploading the videos online. His last YouTube video was posted in February 2011. I watched several of the channel's most recent videos and found something important in the second to last one. He said, "To celebrate the year 2000, I'm going to explore a place with a personal history. My father owned a warehouse when I was a kid, but he died a few years ago. His business died with him. Thanks to him, there's now an abandoned warehouse with my name on it, literally and figuratively." I called Marjorie and asked if she had recently been to the Snow Foundry. She answered no. The building itself had been condemned. After her brother's death, it was left to rot in a wooded area a couple of miles from Scranton. She gave me a key to the warehouse so I could check for any sign of Aaron. Entering, I found a video camera lying on the warehouse floor and took it with me. I also noticed a message spray painted on the window of the foreman's office. "They're watching." Creepy. I called out for Aaron, made another sweep of the warehouse, and then decided to leave and examine the camera's contents. The memory card still held several recordings. Most of them were uneventful. However, Aaron was in every video. He really was there at some point. The last 7 recordings on the card captured his return to his hometown. In the first recording, he said that since he didn't have a car, he would take a bus to Scranton. Then he would hitchhike to the Snow Foundry building. In the next recording, he stood at the factory building just before nightfall. He noted he was nervous as it was cold and getting colder. He had no desire to walk through the woods back to civilization so late at night. He thought about leaving and coming back in the morning, but instead, he pulled a flashlight and crowbar from his backpack and slipped inside the warehouse through one of the freight doors. The next 3 recordings were completely ordinary. He told some childhood stories. He was clearly disappointed that there was nothing interesting inside the building. He began the 5th recording by looking at the mysterious message on the foreman's office window. He stared at it silently, as if it didn't faze him at all. His breathing quickened slightly. He commented that it wasn't the scariest thing he'd seen in abandoned buildings. I expected him to continue, but the video cut off abruptly. This was a little puzzling, but I figured it was nothing special. Maybe the battery died or he accidentally pressed the button. That's why the beginning of the 6th recording shocked me a little. It was a video of Aaron breathing heavily in some dingy restroom. He placed the flashlight on the sink, pointing at himself, and then turned the camera on himself. He was clearly terrified. He spoke in a frightened whisper. I saw something, like a mannequin or some crap. It wasn't there when I first walked up to the office. I know that for sure. It was literally 10 feet away from me, staring right the hell at me. I had questions. Why would a warehouse that manufactured airplanes need a mannequin? And judging by his description, it should have been in plain sight when Aaron approached the office. Why didn't he notice it on the video? Why didn't I see it when I was there? Did the same person who placed it for Aaron remove it after Aaron had been there? I re-watched the video of Aaron approaching the foreman's office and saw nothing resembling a mannequin at any point. I was just as terrified as Aaron in the video. I really didn't want to watch the last recording on the card, but I had to. I was paid to find out what happened to this guy, and it seemed the answer might be on this flash drive. Very reluctantly, I clicked on the last file and started watching. The video showed Aaron silently walking back toward the foreman's office. I realized he had been hiding in the restroom in the loading area. From there, the only way to the freight doors he had entered through was past the very spot where he'd noticed whatever it was. Leaving the restroom, he made no sound. Approaching the corner, he turned off his flashlight and whispered into the camera. "This is where I saw it." He hesitated, but eventually turned the light back on and found nothing where the figure had stood before. He sighed with a mix of relief and fear. He was probably asking himself the same question I was. Where did it go and how did it move? Something was completely wrong. He advanced very slowly, inch by inch, toward the office. He knew he had to pass through this path to reach safety. The warehouse was pitch black except for his flashlight. Night had fully set in by this time. The scant natural light that had earlier filtered through the roof hatches had completely vanished. Aaron crept toward the office, and the warehouse around him was plunged into complete silence. Aaron gasped and froze in place. I didn't immediately understand why he did it, but it quickly became clear that some figure was slowly walking past him. The figure moved directly behind his back. It was so close it seemed they brushed shoulders. The figure entered the beam of Aaron's flashlight, but paid absolutely no attention to the paralyzed young man. This person should have noticed him. Aaron was the only light source in that part of the building and was breathing very heavily, but the figure didn't react at all. It was hard for me to make out the figure as the camera's focus kept shifting, but as far as I could tell, it was just a normal person. It seemed to be wearing coveralls, but honestly, I can't be sure. Aaron turned off his flashlight as soon as the figure turned right into the foreman's office. When the light went out, I thought the video was over. About 40 seconds of complete silence followed. I flinched when, after this long pause, Aaron started quietly whimpering. I'm not entirely sure what happened in the darkness. It seemed he moved forward, hoping to reach the exit. He found himself at the door of the foreman's office. The figure had just entered that office. Aaron's sobs grew slightly louder, but then stopped immediately when a rustling sound came from his right. A short silence hung in the air, which turned out to last an eternity before it was broken again. "Hi, Aaron." The voice was quiet but piercing, almost like a small child's. Aaron immediately screamed and dropped the camera. It seemed whoever or whatever was in the office lunged at him. Moments after his scream, I heard a piercing shriek. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps rapidly stomping across the concrete floor. Aside from the distant cries of Aaron's pain scattered throughout the following 15 minutes, the video remained dark and silent for 29 minutes after he dropped the camera. Then the recording simply ended when the memory card ran out of space. Unfortunately, I don't have any answers for you. I immediately handed the SD card to the police. This was clearly something far more sinister than just a young man distancing himself from his family. I gave my statement to the police, gave them Mrs. Holden's contact information, and then asked them not to contact me about this case unless absolutely necessary. Fortunately, I haven't heard from them since. Obviously, all of this has shaken me to my core. I barely sleep now. As I said earlier, I'm retired now, but I have absolutely no source of income. I can't collect severance because I resigned voluntarily. but it's also becoming increasingly difficult for me to go out into the world to look for a new job. I hope that writing this post will ease the mental anguish I've been experiencing since I found out what happened to Aaron Snell. If not, I'm honestly not sure how long I'll last. Every day since watching that video, I constantly carry a gun with me. I carry it in case whatever came for Aaron comes for me. My constant fear does not subside. I've reached a point where I've decided that if tonight proves sleepless or is again filled with nightmares about that creature, I will put a bullet in my head. I will spare myself a fate worse than death, one that seems to be waiting for us all. And remember, some doors once opened can never be closed. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe before something else finds you. See you in the next one.